This is a true story. I was a brand new nurse working graveyard shift on an oncology unit. We also sometimes got sick inmates from the prison. They were placed on our unit on the 9th floor, which was the highest floor in the hospital, so that if they tried to escape, it would take them longer to make it out the door. On this particular night, we had no inmates as patients, and all was quiet at 11 p.m. as we took over for the evening shift. We anticipated a bad night, though, because a full moon shined brightly in the clear, dark November sky. At 1 a.m., everything was still calm and quiet. Me and Mary, an older, gray-haired nurse who still proudly wore her white cap, were at the nurse's station doing our charting. A call light went on. It was one of Mary's patients, a very elderly gentleman in the room at the far end of the hall. Mary rose immediately and went to answer the light. A few minutes later, my heart constricted in fear as I heard a man's savage, gurgling yells coming from the room down the hall, the room where Mary had gone. I jumped up and ran halfway down hall when Mary came stumbling out of the room, gasping, with her hands around her neck and her eyes watering. She ran to the nurse's station and calmed herself, and then told me that as she bent over his bed to ask him what he needed, he reached up and grabbed the ends of the stethoscope hanging from her neck, wrapped them around, and began choking her. She managed to break away, but she was shaken. I called security, and they came right up. The patient was sound asleep when they entered his room, and he said he had no recollection of the incident. Mary said that he was not confused on rounds, and that she was surprised at his strength for being so frail. He was discharged back to the nursing home the next day. What had happened was unsettling, and the unease stuck with us. One night, about a week later, I was at the nurse's station with Nancy, a competent nurse with a lilting British accent. It was 1 a.m. and the unit was quiet, that is, until we heard a man's constricted screams coming from the room at the far end of the hall. The patient was a man around 80 years old, and his wife was spending the nights at his bedside in a recliner. They had been married for 55 years and couldn't stand spending a moment apart. So imagine our surprise as we ran into the room and saw her bent over her husband's bed, her hands around his neck, attempting to strangle him. It was not easy for the two of us to stop her. It was as if she was absolutely determined to choke him to death. In the dim light, I could see her fierce expression, her brows knit together tightly, and her lips pulled back, revealing her teeth. Our CNA ran and called security. The moment her grip was released from his neck, she looked dazed and perplexed, and asked what was going on. The patient was gasping, and he looked at his wife with abject terror. First thing in the morning, Nancy and I met with our head nurse, a big-boned, no-nonsense woman, who was the type that wasn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and get things done. She decided that the patient would be transferred immediately, and that the room would be kept empty for the time being. She called the chaplain assigned to our unit and asked him to come up. She wanted to talk to him about blessing the room. She told him this. 2 weeks earlier, a prison inmate had been a patient in the room where both choking incidents occurred. The prisoner died. At 1 a.m., he had been convicted 25 years earlier of strangling 3 people to death.